Sugar Mama is the 14th episode of the first season of Taxi. This is, of course, directed by the wonderful James Burrows, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. I love this, and this is exactly the kind of thing I was expecting from Taxi. Up until this point, understandably, a lot of the episodes have been about the personal lives of different characters, and because obviously they're meeting different people every day when they're picking them up as passengers, it gives us the opportunity to meet a lot of different people and interact with a lot of different characters. And this was something that I thought would work so well with the show. We haven't seen a lot of that. We've seen little bits and pieces of it, but this is, I think, maybe the first episode or one of the first episodes where the episode is dedicated entirely to a particular passenger, and I absolutely love it. Alex picks up this woman and she asks him to drive her around to different spots. She's called Dee, she's played by Ruth Gordon, and initially their interaction is quite abrasive, but I'd say after a minute or so, after they've been driving around, they soon warm to each other, and Dee has had a really great night. She is clearly a fan of Alex, and it turns out she's got quite a lot of money. She's very wealthy, and I won't go into all of the details, but we find out why. We hear her backstory, and the next thing we know, she visits him at the garage, and because Alex has told her all about the people he works with, she's able to identify some people, and she identifies Louie and smacks him on his bottom, which I thought was very, very funny. And she ends up taking, well, I was going to say she ends up taking Alex out again. It is Alex who's driving her, but she is the one calling the shots, which I guess is usually the case with taxis, but certainly it seems like she's very much in charge. And at the end of the night, she tips him $100 and says, "See you tomorrow." And I definitely got the impression from that point that she's paying for company. She is buying Alex's company. And they go out again. And as he's driving, she provides him with a rather nice jacket. And he's driving her to a location where she's going dancing. And while they're parked outside, she initially asks him to wait for her, which would be a long time without passengers, but I guess she would tip him quite handsomely for that. And then she decides that actually, why doesn't he go dancing with her? After all, she's just bought him a jacket and, wouldn't you know it, a tie as well. And they end up going dancing. It's a lovely scene. The music is really lovely. I really enjoyed that scene. And Alex ends up taking her back to her house. And basically, he says at this point that this can't go on. And that he feels really uncomfortable, basically being paid to be her friend almost. And Dee does give a good argument for the power of money. One of my favourite quotes is, "Money makes people punctual," which I think is probably very true. If you turned up somewhere knowing you'd get money, you'd make the effort to be there on time. And we have this really well-written exchange between both of them. I don't agree with everything Dee says. She basically is suggesting money is, well, in fact, she described it as money is up there with oxygen for her. But she definitely seems to think that money is the most important thing, or one of the most important things. And Alex felt used because he thought that she was his friend, or maybe that she considered him a friend, and now he just feels like she is just buying his companionship. And she ends up saying that he does still like her, and he has to admit that actually he does, and I'm not surprised. She's a very, very likeable character. She's got a really great, charming personality, and I rather enjoyed this journey with her. And ultimately they agree to go to lunch tomorrow on the condition, Alex's condition, that he pays. And Dee's closing remark, she just said that she hoped her stomach could handle the kind of places Alex could afford, which I thought was a pretty great way to end things. I think this definitely raises a lot of really great points, a lot of great discussion topics about the power of money and whether Dee was in the right to be offering Alex all of this money. And I definitely think Alex had a very believable approach to this. Initially, he was happy enough to accept the $26 tip, and then the $100 tip. After a bit of back and forth, he accepted it. But I think most people would become quite uncomfortable if somebody started to offer them a lot of gifts and a lot of money, particularly if they're not in a position to repay that. with the same quality of gifts. Yes, one could argue that he's giving his gift of time in exchange for her monetary gifts, but it's not an equal balance there at all. And I think it's a very believable response from Alex. And yes, Dee's actions might feel a little strange, but she's a very, very likable character. I liked her from the start, but when she smacked Louie on his bottom, definitely thoroughly enjoyed her character even more. It's a great episode. As I said, I'm hoping we get a lot more like this, where we have the cab drivers going out, meeting interesting characters, having all kinds of stories. There are so many possibilities. I dare say the possibilities are endless because they can meet so many different people. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with that. Now that we've had enough time to get to know the characters, to establish their personalities, I would like to see a lot more episodes where they're out and about doing their job, but meeting people and maybe having, like we see with Alex, things outside of work, like dancing. There are a lot of opportunities for that. So excited to see what the episodes are like going forward. And I'm pleased to say that I really thoroughly enjoyed Sugar Mama.